She whispered it like a lullaby, just as I kissed her forehead goodnight. 4 more Tuesdays, Mommy, and you go away forever. It was one of those things kids say that catches you off guard. You laugh it off, tell yourself they're just playing pretend, but it sticks with you. It sinks into you. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing it over and over in my head. 4 more Tuesdays. The words didn't sound threatening when she said them. In fact, it sounded like she thought she was being helpful. Her name is Elsie. She's 6. Bright, sweet, loves drawing pictures of animals and talking about outer space. She's never been the kind of kid to say weird stuff. No imaginary friends. No nightmares. That's why it got to me. I asked her the next morning while she ate her cereal. Hey, sweetie, what did you mean last night? About 4 Tuesdays? She didn't look up from her bowl. She just said, that's the day. The last one I saw it. I asked what she meant by saw. She shrugged and said, I just know. Like how I knew about the black cat, I froze. 2 days earlier, I'd hit a black cat with my car. It ran into the road out of nowhere. It wasn't wearing a collar. I'd buried it in our backyard. I hadn't told anyone. Who told you about the cat? I asked. She looked confused. You did. Just not with your mouth. My stomach twisted. I didn't push her further. I figured she'd overheard something, or maybe seen the scratch on my bumper. Still, it unsettled me. Tuesday number 1 came and went. I kept telling myself I was being silly. I went to work, picked up Elsie from school, cooked dinner. Everything was fine until I stepped outside to get the mail. A man in a delivery uniform was standing at the curb, not walking by standing still, staring at our house. I asked if he needed something. He didn't answer, just turned and walked away. No truck, no package, just gone. I brushed it off. My nerves were already shot. The following Tuesday, I almost didn't notice what day it was until Elsie came to sit beside me on the couch and quietly said, 2 more. I laughed nervously. Are you still doing that little countdown thing? She nodded and said, it's not a game. I'm just telling you so you're ready. That night, I dreamt I was trapped in the house while the walls around me closed in. My daughter stood outside the window, watching expressionless. When I told my friend Bree the next morning, she half joked, maybe she's psychic, or maybe she knows something. Kids are closer to the other side, you know. I didn't laugh. Later that day, while putting laundry away, I found a drawing tucked under Elsie's pillow. It was a stick figure me with red crayons scribbled all over the chest. I was lying down. Around me were smaller stick figures crying. She had written above it, in that wobbly 6-year-old handwriting, last Tuesday. I felt sick. I confronted her. She didn't cry. Didn't even seem to understand why I was upset. She just said, that's how it looks. That's what happens. But it's okay. Afterward, it gets quiet. Quiet. That word echoed in my mind for the next 24 hours. On the 3rd Tuesday, I called out of work. I just couldn't do it. That morning, I found my front door unlocked. I always lock it. Always. Nothing was missing. Nothing out of place. Except there was a smudge on the inside of the peephole, like someone had pressed their eye against it from inside. I took Elsie to school late, pretending everything was fine. She kissed my cheek and said, 1 more. I couldn't speak. That day, I bought security cameras. I didn't care how paranoid I looked. I installed one by the front door and one in the hallway outside our bedrooms. That night, I sat in the living room with the monitor in my lap. My chest ached from holding my breath so often. I kept telling myself this was just anxiety. At 3:12 a.m., I saw movement on the screen. The hallway camera. A shape low to the ground crawled across the floor from Elsie's room to mine. I ran upstairs with a bat. Nothing was there. Her room was empty. My room was empty. The doors were locked. But the footage was still there. And the shape? It wasn't human. It was too long. No visible arms or legs. Just a dragging mass with a head like a melted mannequin. And it paused right in front of my door. Then backed away. The final Tuesday arrived like a funeral bell. I kept Elsie home. I told work I was sick. I made her pancakes and played games with her. I didn't let her out of my sight. That afternoon, while she was coloring, I sat down and said, "Elsie, can you tell me how it happens?" She thought for a while, then said, "You're in the kitchen. I'm upstairs. Someone knocks on the door, but you already know they're inside. Then you get tired, and then it's quiet. Do I scream?" I asked. She shook her head. "You don't want me to hear." I held her for what felt like hours. As the sky darkened, my chest tightened. I kept all the lights on. I held my phone like a weapon. At 6:43 p.m., someone knocked on the door. 3 soft knocks. Elsie, without looking up, whispered, "That's them." I didn't move. The cameras showed no one. Then, without warning, the power went out. My phone died instantly, fully charged just minutes before. I scooped Elsie into my arms and bolted for the car. We slept in a motel 20 miles away, TV blaring, every light on. She woke me up once around Truamamia, just looked at me and smiled. "It's not this time. You changed it." "What do you mean?" She shrugged, eyes already closing again. "I told you early. I hoped you'd listen." She fell back asleep. We stayed at the motel for 3 days. I returned to the house alone that Friday. Nothing had changed. No sign of a break-in. Cameras were off. Power restored. No scratches. No shadows. Just normal. But sometimes, when I'm alone in the kitchen, I swear I hear it. 3 soft knocks, followed by the sensation that I'm not alone anymore. And every Tuesday since, Elsie still says the same thing. Not yet, but someday. The first time my son called me Danny instead of Dad, I corrected him gently. The second time he said, "That's what I used to call you when you were small and afraid of the dark." I never expected to be a single father at 32. Lena and I split before Logan turned 2, and the courts gave me full custody mostly because she wasn't in a place to care for herself, let alone a child. Logan and I made it work. He was a quiet kid, not clingy, but always watchful, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. The first weird thing he ever said came during bath time. "You used to cry in the tub when Grandma yelled." He was 3. I was kneeling by the tub, rinsing shampoo from his hair, when he looked up at me, water dripping down his nose, and said, I laughed. "What?" He stared. "You were smaller than me. I used to help you." I chalked it up to imagination. Kids say weird stuff, right? But something about the way he said it, flat, quiet, almost annoyed like I should remember. It didn't stop there. A few nights later, I woke up to him standing in my bedroom doorway, silhouetted by the hall light. "Danny, Danny," he whispered. "That's my name. Not Daddy, not Dad." "Are you okay?" I asked, sitting up. He just stood there. "You always had nightmares about the dog in the fireplace. You used to sleepwalk. You cried when the lady left." He turned around and walked back to his room without another word. I sat there, heart pounding, because I did have nightmares about a dog in the fireplace, something from an old picture book that freaked me out as a kid. And no one but me and my therapist knew I used to sleepwalk. And the lady was a term ID used once in a letter to describe my birth mom before she left my dad and me for good. Logan had never met her, had never heard those stories, but he knew, had never seen the house I grew up in. The next day, I asked him where he heard that stuff. You wore Spider-Man pajamas and had the race car nightlight. You were scared of storms, so I used to sleep on the floor beside your bed. He was building a Lego tower, not even looking at me. I didn't hear it. I remember it, he said. I felt dizzy. I hadn't thought about those pajamas in decades. The nightlight broke when I was 6. I was terrified of thunderstorms. Who told you those things, Logan? He frowned, confused. You did. A long time ago. I couldn't explain it. No one could have told him. I started second-guessing everything. Had I shown him old photos? Videos? Maybe I talked in my sleep? But I knew I hadn't. My dad, strict, bitter after the divorce, had thrown out anything he saw as junk. We moved 2 years later. I never saw it again. Then came the basement. There it was. He never wanted to go down there before, but one day he walked straight to the back corner behind the furnace and pointed at the wall. You buried it here. Buried what? I asked, my mouth going dry. Your box, the one you didn't want Grandpa to find. He started scratching at the drywall. I stared. My heart was in my throat. I had a box. A small metal tin where I hid drawings, comics, and a toy ring I'd gotten from a vending machine. At one point, he smiled faintly and whispered, "Good job, Danny." I buried that tin behind the furnace, between the wall studs, when I was 7. I didn't even think it would still be here, but when I pried open the wall panel, said things like, "You should call Mike. He misses you." Rusty, sealed shut with electrical tape. Inside, folded comics, a red toy ring, a crayon drawing of me and my dog in front of a fireplace. I sat on the cold basement floor for a long time, not sure if I wanted to cry or scream. When I looked up, Logan was gone. Looked at the ceiling. That night, I watched him sleep. He twitched, murmured in his dreams. After that, he changed. He started drawing pictures of me as a kid, in places I hadn't seen in years. A blue hallway, a brown shag rug, my childhood bedroom, exactly as it had been. I started spiraling, Googling reincarnation, past lives, quantum memory transfer, anything that could explain it. He knew my friends' names. Not about the dog, but about being a child, looking up at a man I couldn't quite see, and feeling safe. A hand on my shoulder. Someone telling me, "I'll always be nearby, even when you forget me." Mike was my best friend in 2nd grade. I hadn't spoken to him in 20 years. I did call him. He picked up. We talked for an hour. I was shaking the whole ride, glancing at every intersection. He said he'd been thinking about me all week, out of nowhere. "Your kid's got a gift, man," Mike said. I didn't respond. I was too afraid to admit what I suspected. One night, after I tucked Logan in, I whispered, "How do you know all this stuff about me?" He was in his 30s, sharp eyes, tired smile. He rolled onto his back. "I already told you," he said. "I was here first. I helped raise you. But I got old and died. Then I came back." He looked at me. "Now it's your turn." Didn't talk to Logan much after that. I was afraid of what he'd say, afraid of what he wouldn't. I left his room and vomited in the kitchen sink. I didn't sleep at all that night, but nothing fit, because this wasn't just remembering. This was knowing. It was for me, too. Then he turned off his lamp. I started having nightmares again. I'd wake up crying. One morning, Logan was waiting at the kitchen table before I even got up. "Today's the day the crash almost happened," he said calmly. "What crash?" I asked, my stomach turning. "You'll see, but I'll stop it, like you did for me." I didn't want to drive anywhere, but I had to take him to daycare. And then, just before a light turned red, a truck ran it at full speed, inches from my bumper. If I'd accelerated just 1 second earlier, we'd be gone. Logan didn't even flinch. "See," he said, "I remember. That night, I looked through old photo albums. On a whim, I found a picture of my dad, the only one I had, from when I was about 5. And for the first time, I saw it. The same shape of the mouth, same mole near the jawline, same gaze. Logan looked like him. Not as he was in old age, as he was when I was a boy. I locked the album away. The last thing he told me before going to bed last night was this: "You doing okay, Danny? I know it's scary." And from the hallway, I heard him whisper, "I'll always be nearby, even when you forget me." Just like my dream. Just like he told me once, long ago, when I was small and afraid of the dark.